We are live. Welcome to the Guide to Movies podcast with Joe and Sean, where we dive into the biggest movie news of the past week and get into other shenanigans as we feel like it. Sean, how the hell are you doing? This is episode 10.
Episode 10. We've done it. We're in the double digits.
We've made it.
It feels great. I'm doing well. I'm nearing the last few days of summer vacation for a math teacher like myself. Today Sam was out of the office she was out to the office. And so she wasn't just watching me lie on the couch all day, which caused me to lie on the couch even more. Her judgment drives me truly, but
hey, that's why she is like the cornerstone of this podcast, right? She keeps you going. She keeps me honest when we're on here. This is true. It's funny though. She's out of the office. Well, kind of, right? If her home has been the office for how long?
It's amazing that I quickly went to that right off the bat.
Right. So are you back in the classroom then come Thursday?
So it's going to be Thursday I'm going to be literally in the classroom, but it's only going to be professional development for like a week and a half because we're preparing to try to keep every single child 6 feet apart, which is definitely something that's absolutely possible. Very excited for that.
Hey, I told you before, I work for college and it's impossible. It's, you would think they would be able to do it. And so good luck. But here we are. We have some fun news to get to tonight. We've kind of grouped some of the stuff because it seemed like things fell into really two different pots, right? It was either a lot of DC news, obviously, because of DC fandom. And then, of course, not of course, but strangely, we have a ton of reboots that have been announced in the past couple of weeks. So we're going to touch on them tonight as well. But first, I do want to spend a few minutes just hyping up the Guide to Movies Film Festival. It's officially called the first ever Guide to Movies Virtual Film Festival. If you say it 5 times fast, you get free admission to the free event. But we are starting on Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So things are about to get fun. The very first night, just to run through real quick what we have some filmmakers, and we'll be taking a look at some of their short films before we get to a watch-along event. So we have filmmaker Mustafa Keshvari from the film Corona, which was recently, I think I talked about this last week, but it was recently made during the pandemic and really dives into xenophobia during this strange COVID-19 time. The co-directors of The Shadow and the Mandalorian, and then RuPaul's Drag Race star Nina West, who is also the star lending her voice to a short animated film called Coaster, where animator Dan Lund, who also works for Disney, will be a part of this as well. He was one of the filmmakers on that. And then that evening, we have a watch-along of Extraction with movie files from on Netflix. The next day, just running through real quick, there's some programs. So education is, cornerstone of these two teachers that are running this podcast. But we have trivia starting at 11 a.m., which is Disney Pixar trivia. We have creating desirable content, toxic fandoms, finding your voice as a critic, and then a Q&A with the author of the release, the Snyder Cut book, insight into Hollywood North, and then a watch along for Mortal Kombat's 25th anniversary with Talkin' TV, a watch along with myself and crew for Night Hunter. Before we have a Q&A with Night Hunter director David Raymond at 9 p.m. Eastern, and then a watch party on Scener for Palm Springs with the Basic Cinephile, which I loved Palm Springs. That was such a nice surprise of a movie.
Palm Springs was probably one of my top films this year so far. Definitely.
Yeah. Sunday is the last day of it, and it's podcast heavy, so we'll have live streams, and we will kick it off at 11 a.m. in the morning. The Guide to Movies podcast with Joe and Sean, followed by a watch party on Scener of The Five Bloods, hosted by Bearded Film Reviews. The final program of the weekend for that education is sort of a panel on comics to film, discussing how comics translate into film with the guys from the Chumpcast. Then 4 podcasts right in a row, back to back. The Sean Chandler podcast, the Chumpcast, Real Gay Movie Show, and the Hallmarkies podcast, before we wrap up the weekend with watch along of Parasite with Flix Talk. So Parasite is on Hulu, and last year's Best Picture winner. We got to watch that, right? It's got to be one of those.
I'm telling you, I'm so excited to see that again because I've watched it I think twice, and then I've watched it 7,000 other times in my mind because I will never forget that movie.
Yeah, I've only seen it once, but then after reading through the storyboard book or whatever was released, When I got that a few months ago, I was like, oh God, I got to see this movie again, don't I? So one thing I do want to encourage everyone is if you haven't registered already, please do so on guyatthemovies.com. It's free. It's absolutely free. But registering just gets you the emails daily that will give you the full schedule. And then one other piece is that while this is a free event, we will be raising money for Direct Relief, which is an organization that really helps with major disasters throughout the world, and especially in third world countries and low-income areas. But they've been very, very prevalent in the fight to bring PPE to areas that need it during the ongoing pandemic. So we will be chatting with someone from Direct Relief during the welcome part of the film festival on Friday evening. But I'm very excited to be able to give them whatever we can raise, whether that's $10 or $100 or $500, whatever. Any little bit helps these organizations. So will you be there, Sean?
I am going to be there. Yes. I honestly can't wait. Like, especially, starting off Friday with all that stuff, but that Corona short film sounds great. Very excited to rewatch Extraction. I loved that movie a lot.
I do too.
And then
it'll be a good time.
It's going to be a good community with things. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah. Should be interesting. So we'll be able to watch movies together because, as we're about to get into, we've been watching movies by ourselves. You watch a lot more than I do once again.
Yeah. I have to reiterate that, this is the last little bit of the summer hurrah. So like this list will die down soon, I think.
Next week you're going to be like, I don't have anything.
Yeah. No.
So do you want to start off with what you've watched, Sean?
Yeah, let me go with what I watched. So the first thing I watched was a documentary on Disney Plus called Howard, which is about the Disney animated composer Howard Ashman. If you are a fan of old school Disney, and when I say old school, I do mean just Little Mermaid. He basically composed or wrote songs and composed Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin. And right there, that's just like a trifecta hit right there. And It was amazing watching him record these different songs. It was amazing watching Jerry Orbach and Angela Lansbury recording the voices for them in a place where there was a studio with an orchestra inside of it. It was just everything about this just made my heart to flutter. But it's an astounding portrait of an artist who tragically died of AIDS. Interesting thing that they brought up is look at the lyrics to Kill the Beast. It might actually be about the AIDS epidemic, which is probably one of the most fascinating things. And they don't have that officially, that he officially did that. But if you look at that, it's like, oh wow, this might be that kind of situation. Yeah. I then moved on to Sputnik, which is a Russian sci-fi horror about an alien that comes down with astronauts and tries to evade the planet. I'm not saying anything else except see this movie. It's an absolute blast. I think it was very, very low budget, as you can see sometimes from the effects, but they edited it well enough that you can't tell through most of it, but it was just suspenseful. It was, the concept I just gave you is pretty unoriginal, but what they did with it was so much fun. I heard
really good things.
This one, I'm telling you, I absolutely love this one. The next one, here's where we start to go down a little bit. Then I saw Tesla. Ethan Hawke is great. Ethan Hawke was great in this. This movie was trying to be weird for the sake of being weird. It was, trying to the people that love it are just like, oh, it's so off kilter. And it's like, yeah, but what was the point of it? I don't really understand what the plot was or the point. It just was one of those things where if you're going to be this odd, have a reason for it.
It kind of reminds me of a Radioactive type movie. Is it more about the individual than it is really anything else?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Radioactive though, it did, it actually looked good and it really did have a point and showed what she was trying to accomplish. This one, there was maybe the portrait of a tortured inventor, but then there was just, cheap, intentionally cheap backgrounds and stuff like that, trying to make it some sort of performance piece. I couldn't really figure it out. He sings karaoke in it, and this is Nikola. Yeah, there we go. And the next one, the next three that I have here are probably my biggest surprises. The One and Only Ivan is something I decided to watch on Disney Plus, and I thought, okay, talking animals movie, this really isn't going to go so hot for me. I kind of liked it. I don't lie, I kind of liked it. It was, pretty well done. They have a complex character in Bryan Cranston who would normally be a mustache twirling villain, because these are talking animals in a circus, and he is the head of the circus, is Bryan Cranston, and so you'd assume he'd be this mustache twirling villain, but he genuinely loved the animals, so there was really something interesting going on there, which I really liked.
They have a really good voice cast, don't they?
So the voice cast was interesting because, it had a great voice cast. Like, you see the long line, and the voice acting was good. You have Sam Rockwell in there as the lead, and he is doing a great job, like as a gorilla. And, Danny DeVito is kind of fun and spunky as the dog. You have Brooklyn Pierce, who is in the Florida Project. She plays a baby elephant. She's very charming. I'd say some of the side characters maybe are phoning it in a little bit. Maybe they're not really that, but Helen Mirren went in there for probably an afternoon and got a paycheck. She's good. But there was the main characters were enough that I actually it was quite magical. I'd say that it skipped a few important plot points in it, or just rushed through them where I was just like, wait, we should have spent more time. Well, okay. But it's a kid's movie. What are you going to do?
Right.
The next one is probably my biggest surprise, because through the first half of this movie, I was just mocking it and making fun of it. And this is Chemical Hearts on Amazon Prime. This is young adult, love story, just hoity-toity kind of stuff. And I really I would normally hate this kind of movie, but it worked for me. It was chock full of cliches. The plot was semi-predictable. It worked for me. I don't know, it got me. I was moved by the end of it. And, I still think that all of those aspects of it are bad. But I will give it the credit that, it knew how to move. It knew how to do something right. It was made very well. So I go back and forth on that one.
Okay.
And the last one I saw yesterday, and this is a documentary short on Netflix called The Speedcubers, which made me cry. I didn't expect a documentary about competitive Rubik's Cube solving to make me cry. This is something where it's about these two friends. I couldn't get over how beautiful this was. One of the two friends are the two rivals, they're the two world champions, so they're going head to head, but they're also, they also love each other. One of them is, has autism, and it's just probably one of the most stirring movies, and it's only 40 minutes, so it's basically a documentary short. I wanted to see a 3-hour movie of this. I didn't want to go away from it. So all in all, I think I did okay this week.
Well, a lot of times when you have those documentary shorts, they're testing the waters for a potential feature film down the road. So who knows? Could see that. So because of the film festival stuff, I once again have been very behind on a lot of stuff, but I did get a few movies in this week. I watched The Outpost, starring Orlando Bloom, Scott Eastwood, a couple other characters or actors. It was about an outpost in Afghanistan that really was kind of under siege all the time, and finally the Taliban tried to take it over, and it is just one full hour. It's a 2-hour movie, but the last hour is just non-stop action. And at first I was like, oh, this is another war movie where it's just them bullshitting with one another the entire time and whatever. But oh my god, I actually really loved it in the end. It was really good. The action was incredible. The acting was actually really good. I mean, Scott Eastwood, for the first time, I think, in a movie I've seen him in, I really liked him in it. There's a couple other actors in there that were pretty solid that I was surprised by. So all in all, it's based on a book by Jake Tapper, who is Jake Tapper from CNN. He wrote the true story of this. But it's pretty fascinating. A lot of people lost their lives, unfortunately, that day. A lot of soldiers, and at the end they're doing the whole side by side comparison of the who played them and their actual picture. And I was just sitting there with goosebumps the entire time. So
I got to shout out Caleb Landry Jones on that. Caleb Landry Jones's performance was unbelievable. I mean, yeah. He was the one right at the end, after all of the after all the dust settled from the ultimate fight. The look in his eyes was just bone chilling.
Yeah, Caleb was great. What's funny? I couldn't figure out who he was at first, because that was one of my knocks early on in the movie, is you don't really get a good distinction between who's who, because unfortunately a lot of them do look similar in some ways, and especially when you're in army fatigues and all that. But there was another actor in there, and I'm going to look it up real quick because I really wanted to call him out, and I should have been a little bit more prepared.
While you do that, you got it.
Taylor John Smith was the actor. He played the lieutenant who took over near the end and kind of led them through the raid. He's a young actor, but he was incredible in this movie.
So I think that was my one knock of the movie is during the entire final battle, I didn't know who anyone was because they didn't really spend too much time except for like a couple of characters. And I think that was because they wanted to do service to the entire platoon. Sure. And like, have every actor there, which is very honorable, but that did make it sort of a little bit less like, when you're right, Caleb Landry Jones, I really didn't know him until the end because I really didn't know who he was. That's, I once again, I'm not going to hold that against the movie because that's, a very honorable thing to do, but that was one of the trickier parts.
Yeah, but all in all, I was pretty impressed by it. I did enjoy it. The other two I watched were part of the Outfest 2020. So it's the annual LGBTQIA film festival, which moved online this year. Some really solid entries. I mean, there's always some movies that don't make it to, wide release and sort of fly under the radar. One is called Cowboys. I watched this last night, actually, and I was like crying in bed a little bit. But it is Steve Zahn, surprisingly, in a pretty emotional role. He plays a father who his daughter tells him that she believes that she's a boy, and it's a 10-year-old trans actress, actually a trans child, and the mother doesn't accept it, and so he's also pretty manic and has some other underlying health issues going on, but he ends up kidnapping his child to take him to Canada. To help him like live out his life and whatever. It is very emotional and very different. It was a beautifully shot movie, which going back to the Outpost, that was the other thing about the Outpost as well that I really liked. It was beautifully shot in some scenes, like the scenery behind them when they were out, I'm going to use the wrong term here, but when they were patrolling, so to speak. Yeah. And it was just really cool. But, this takes place in the Montana wilderness, and it was just absolutely beautiful in Cowboys. So I do recommend that. It's winning a lot of awards. It's probably going to be up there in terms of the film festival as well. The other one was Catfish Killer. This is actually a movie that I have been keeping an eye on for quite a while, and I actually donated to like the Indiegogo last year when they were getting it going. I'm aware of that one of the actors in it through a friend of mine. But it is a 12-minute short, I think it is, maybe even less. But it's basically all about 3 gay friends that go to a cabin in the woods. They're on an app that is supposed to be Grindr, but it's called Pecker. And the one is using a fake photo or a false photo. And when he updates it, the guy that he was talking to says he's going to kill them and then shows up and tries to kill them. It is hilarious. It's actually really well done. I was very impressed with it, thinking it was going to be very low budget, but it was pretty funny. So, it's the nice thing of being able to catch films that I wouldn't otherwise, and trying to support these film festivals that are trying to do the best that they can during this time. So, yeah, I got a couple others on my list this week for that. I think it goes through the end of the week or at least Thursday. But I don't know.
Where can we see these films from the Outfest? Because now I'm curious.
They're on outfest.com. It's for the entire event. I think it was $60.
Okay.
It's now, I think they lowered it to $49, but I actually might have a coupon code. I did get an email about something. It was like, share with your friends. So let you know. But there's some other big ones in there. I'm going to forget some of the actors, but some big actors that are involved in some of the films as well. So not that drives anything, but it's usually the films that have no names in there that really end up making an impact. That's probably what I'll be doing after this, weeping in my bed until midnight. So, all right, let's break into some of the news. We have not a ton of news, but some meaty things that I'm sure we want to discuss, and who knows what tangents we'll get on. First and foremost, Saturday was a marathon. It was DC Fandom. Started at 1 p.m. Eastern, ended at 9 p.m. Eastern, replayed. So that's where they got their like 24 hours thing. I was like, slick. But it was nonstop. It was first and foremost, very good event, very well done, very well curated, regardless of whether you like DC or not, or like what they presented. So the first thing we got was a Wonder Woman 1984 panel. We got another preview or another trailer. The main thing that we found out, two things. One is that I made a typing error in the story, as I find right now as I'm looking at the website. But number two, they are committed to getting this in the theaters, which is cool. I'm glad. And the other is that we finally got a good look at Kristen Wiig's villain of Cheetah. So it's kind of a blend between CGI and practical effects. Did you take a look at this?
I saw it, but I also saw it in a movie last year called Cats. So I'm
the best thing that could have happened to Wonder Woman is that it got delayed like this, because then when Cats came out, they were like, oh shit.
No, it does look fine. It does look fun. The whole movie honestly looks fun. Like, it's just, what was smart about this trailer was that, they made sure to include a few quips from Chris Pine and Gal Gadot, because that is needed. Like, that was the meat and potatoes of the first one. They're now, more established, have some more fun with each other there. When they got a little bit too serious in Wonder Woman, it was that's when it started to slow a little. That was my only issue with Wonder Woman, is it slowed a little. Other than that, great movie. And so I'm just hoping that this is going to be a little bit more fun.
We also did find out a little bit more about Pedro Pascal's villain and Maxwell Lord. He can, it sounds like he can give or grant wishes of some sort, which, reading between the lines, that's probably how we're going to get Chris Pine back in the picture, since he perished many decades ago.
That's how they edited it in the trailer, as like, you'll get your wishes, and then he shows up. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are like, what are you doing with this? So that was a fun one. Wonder Woman is scheduled to come out in October. To be quite honest, the past week, hearing about some theaters opening up, it does sound like theaters are actually not doing too bad in terms of their precautions. I was reading an article today, and Cinemark was really praising Regal Cinemas and saying that Regal's doing it the right way and stuff. So we'll see. I'm venturing back out this weekend, so we'll find out.
Good luck.
I have like my little kit. I'm taking like 2 masks. I don't know why 2. Like, I'm not going to take the one off. And then I'm going to have like a bottle of hand sanitizer and maybe some mace to be like, get away. Or just like a spray bottle.
Yeah, I'm truly nervous. It's like, oh, the theaters did good this weekend, and then I'm the pessimist that says, oh, let's wait a couple of weeks, and then then let's see how we do. But that's my pessimism. Hopefully everything goes fine.
Well, if I'm not here next week. So the next one we got was the Flash panel with Anthony Machetti and Barry Allen. I almost said Ezra Miller. We didn't get much out of it. We did find out confirmation that this is going to expand the multiverse, and it's really going to show that a lot of different pieces of the DC universe exist on different Earths. So backing up, they did have a session before this that was explaining, it was like Multiverse 101. It actually was a great session. A couple of us were talking about it on the side about how just you could tell they know where they're going and they have a handle on it, which is nice to see from DC. But basically Joker is out like on its own Earth. It's doing its own thing. Matt Reeves' new Batman, which we'll be talking about soon, is also on its own Earth doing its own thing. So he's kind of developing his own like world out there, whatever he wants to do. And then we also then have Earth where we have, Aquaman and Wonder Woman with Gal Gadot, and I guess Batfleck also is on that Earth and stuff like that. So explain that a little bit. We're going to explore that a little bit more in the Flash movie. One of the big stories that broke about the Flash movie on Thursday, I believe it was that Ben Affleck will indeed be back for that film, which was a big surprise. It's kind of like they like let the cat out of the bag a little early, but what do you feel about that?
This was a tremendous surprise because I feel like, he was out. Like he like, they knocked him out. Like they didn't want him hit there. He thought it would be best for his mental health to not be there. I'm worried about it in that sense because, the guy seems to be having a pretty good life now. I don't know if, like they basically kicked him off of Batman because they said if you'll keep drinking until you die, if you need to take a break, you need to get away from this. Maybe he is now doing well, so he can come back. That's where it gets a little bit tricky. I'm rooting for him. I'm excited to see this. I'm excited to see him, especially in Justice League. It seemed a lot like a Tony Stark Spider-Man relationship.
Yep.
And so to have that kind of dynamic in that Flash movie sounds like a pretty solid dynamic to have.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped for it. I mean, it sounds like you just said, he was going through a lot back in the day when Justice League was being made, and then when he had written the new Batman film, and he was supposed to star in that. So there was a lot of challenges there. I do think that it says a lot about DC's leadership now under Warner Brothers since the big change over last year or the year before, that he's willing to come back, number one, and that he's comfortable in coming back. Because I would assume that he has people that are kind of like helping him, navigate things and not do anything that's going to be detrimental to his health and mental health, especially. So I'm excited for it. He'll be back in the Flash movie. It's the same movie that we will have Michael Keaton's Batman back as well. So we're playing with different Earths, different timelines, which is fun. I'm very into that. We also got a picture of a new suit that was, oh my God, I wrote created by Superman I don't know when I wrote this story. Jesus. The story was, the suit was created by Batman. And when you zoom into the picture, you find out you can see that it was Michael Keaton's Batman based on the suit that's shown. So that's kind of cool. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see where that goes. It's still 2 years out.
Yeah.
We got a very fun panel about the Suicide Squad. We finally found out who all 84,000 of them are playing. It sounds like James Gunn really dipped down into some of the deaths of DC characters, which is cool. And then we got a behind the scenes look at it as well. It looks like a lot of fun. They said it was like a 1970s action movie mixed with all kinds of other, craziness that James Gunn brings. But the cast just seems delightful. So I'm looking forward to it.
There seems to be a passion in this cast. Like whenever you see them, I mean, Idris Elba, either he's giving the best performance of his life or he's never been more excited. And maybe it's a bit of both. But I think there's a passion behind James Gunn. We've seen that a cast loved James Gunn. We saw that with what happened in the Guardians of the Galaxy situation when he was fired from the third one. And so I think that they love what he does. I think he treats actors right. I think they have fun on set because it seems like they do. Because I have fun when I watch those movies. So
100%.
Like I'm very excited for this. This is the kind of thing that's perfect for James Gunn. He's like, this is the type of universe that's perfect for James Gunn because it's just right now they are just like you're saying, they're just kind of throwing a lot of stuff around and they're doing some multiverses. They can do whatever they want right now, and so pretty much James Gunn's like, okay, I'm gonna do whatever I want.
Yeah, and you and I talked about this right before we came on, but that's one of the things that I think DC's doing that I'm kind of in. I mean, I love DC anyway, so I'm probably not the best person to ask from an unbiased standpoint, but the fact that now they're explaining that they have these different Earths, and it really gives them the opportunity to really branch out and do different things, just like they did in the comics. They would introduce a whole new story and be like, oh, it's on Earth, whatever. And that's fine, right? Like you have films that are working, films that fans want to see. So instead of trying to make everything link up together like Marvel does, maybe this is the way that DC, really makes a splash and makes some money for them. So we'll see. That should be a very interesting direction with a new Suicide Squad. It sounds like they're alluding to some things from the original in terms of the characters themselves. Some of them are back, but not all of them are back, obviously. And then we have just a bunch of new characters. They made fun of Michael Rooker on that panel a lot, which was absolutely hilarious. So we'll see where that goes. The next one that we jumped into, which was kind of cool. So it was about Mainframe Comics, which has been dormant for about 2 decades. And Mainframe Comics really focused on Black superheroes and representation. Mainframe is coming back. It's being revived under DC, which is really cool. I think is just a really nice direction for them to go. But one of the popular characters from the 1990s was Static Shock. There was actually an animated TV show. I remember that show, oddly. At first, I didn't know what they were talking about. And then when I saw a picture, I was like, oh, yeah. But they kind of let slip that there is a live action film in development. Very early development. They're talking about it, but that will be down the line as well. So that's pretty cool.
This one I knew nothing about. Yeah, I had nothing. Excuse me.
You and I are both like,
Yeah. I was like, do I hit the mute button? Because I know you're winding up. And so I knew I was like about to start talking. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to choke. Yeah, this is one I don't know really anything about, even after looking at the picture. I'd say with this one, I'm just, the only comment I can have is let's get some diversity going. Like, and this is exactly what this is going to be all about. Have those characters in DC Comics as well as Marvel Comics. Have more of them. Keep going with them. Let's get as many as we can. And so, I'm excited for this. Let's keep it going.
I'm excited. Well, then we got to potentially one of the biggest two of the night. It was Black Adam with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who always brings the energy and the excitement. But he's been attached to this project for 10 years. About 10 years. He's been wanting to make it. It was a passion project. You can tell by him talking about Black Adam that he understands the character through and through. So that's pretty cool to see. They're in early development with that. We know that Noah Centineo was cast as Atom Smasher. It's currently slated for release December of 2021. Hopefully that sticks depending on when they're getting into production. They released sort of an animated type featurette that really tells the story of Black Adam a little bit, being imprisoned back in, the early days. And then 5,000 years later, he's out, he's awake. And I guess that's where we see him today. But yeah, it just, I'm pretty pumped for this movie. I know they've been building up to a Shazam movie down the road, Shazam Showdown, because that was always one of the big comic showdowns. We know that the Justice Society of America is going to be in there, which fans have been wanting to see for a while, with Dr. Fate, Cyclone, Hawkman, and Atom Smasher. And then he teased Superman, which was kind of weird. It was like we're going to end up friends or maybe foes or something like that. Maybe we'll find out. And then he kind of gave like a look to the camera. And so, of course, the internet was like, oh my God, Superman's going to be in this movie. But hey, that was the only mention we got of Superman all day. So who knows?
So if people haven't figured it out, I not that I'm not a fan of DC, but I know just very, very little about this. So I'm coming in with this and that. And, it's tough with the Black Adam because Black Adam. Now I'm sounding like some old person. It's tough with Black Adam because I don't really know much about this character as well. I can say that, the best part about this is that Dwayne Johnson is involved. And that's the best for this movie. That's the best for DC. Dwayne Johnson being involved in, this type of studio is good. Because not only does he have a talent on the screen where you love watching him, on the screen, delivering lines, delivering quips, or, beating someone to a pulp. You love that. But before that, this guy, is just a monster on social media. This guy's a monster of promotions. So, this movie does sound great, but even if it's not, it's going to get butts and seats. This is something where this guy gets people excited. Like you were saying, he was getting people excited to the event. I mean, and I'm not even close to, shocked because it's just, this is the kind of guy he is. He's just personable. He draws you in and he can get a crowd going and he can get you going to see a movie. I went to see Hobbs and Shaw because of him. And I won't forgive him for that, but that's just that's the kind of presence he is.
Yeah. You're exactly right. I mean, I think it's a great get for them. It's amazing to me that he hasn't found his way into a comic book movie like this yet. It's just surprising with him being the biggest actor out there. He's consistently the highest paid actor of each year. This year, I think he's the highest paid actor, and all of his movies got moved to 2021, which is weird. I don't know. So then we got the Justice League Snyder Cut. We found out that the Snyder Cut is going to be released in 4 1-hour increments on HBO Max, and then they're looking at putting them together in one long ass film at the end. And then we got the first teaser. The first teaser showed a lot of some old footage that we had seen in the very first footage back when Zack Snyder was still involved. I want to say it was in 2016 that we got that footage, but I may be wrong. It was an interesting teaser. It honestly, I didn't know how to feel about it right off the bat. And again, I'm looking forward to this. They used Hallelujah as the song, and it was kind of, I guess it was his Hallelujah, we made it. And but at first I was like, ooh, odd choice. But then when you watch it again, it actually is kind of cool with how they synced up some of the action with the beats and the rendition of Hallelujah. So I'm looking forward to it.
Like beautiful. I mean, that's a beautiful song, and it can always move you. And it moved me the first time I watched it. But choosing that song seemed like a bit of a troll job. Like that's just like getting to the fans. It's just like get them all psyched. Like and just like just see them. And I get it because this is what this is. This is like this is a thing like when they're telling the fans like fuck you Hollywood. Like let's go. Like we got this. We're putting this on HBO Max. It's gonna be a 4-hour movie. Let's do this, guys. And so, we have slightly differing opinions on the Snyder Cut. I think there were a few other issues wrong with that besides like, Zack Snyder's vision wasn't realized. That this is also keeping in mind that you are a, very solid DC fan where, I am not a comic book fan on either side and I am just a movie fan. So I'll just be like, you'll be like, it didn't include this origin story. And I'll be like, well, the plot details weren't exactly correct. Like, so, I'm that kind of nerd.
Well, and I think that's something that's pretty cool. We already see in the trailer that was released that we're definitely getting more backstory for at least 2 characters, one being the Flash, the other being Cyborg. The Flash introduces a whole new character she filmed her scenes and then was cut from the movie completely. Excuse me. And then we also have 2 other characters that we didn't see, but we know that Green Lantern, or someone who is reported to play Green Lantern, filmed his scenes way back when. And then Martian Manhunter, who we had seen in the first 2 movies but didn't know he was Martian Manhunter. There's a scene where Martha is talking to Amy Adams, Lois Lane. I don't know. The past few days I've been like, what's that name again? The big,
really?
Yeah, the big Superman. Low blow.
Like, come on.
But anyway, and there's a scene where everyone thinks that that's when Martian Manhunter's playing her, because apparently we found out a while ago through leaks or whatever that was going to happen. There's still obviously some work that needs to be done on some of the CGI, some of the graphics. It's not coming out till next year, so I'm confident that will be done. We shall see. I'm excited for it. So
I'm still very interested. I shouldn't be like that big of a naysayer. Like I'm going to be very intrigued by this whole thing. One thing that really does get to me is like, or gets me is the shot of all of them lining up. And I really do kind of love that. There's just, the Avengers has it when they all circle around and stuff like that. Something like that. It's just like, okay, yeah, I don't know about the rest of it, but you got me there. You got me. Like I'm psyched.
And Superman in the black suit is just something I'm really pumped for. It's a minor detail, but like the end of Batman versus Superman, you see on the casket, it's the black emblem, and that tipped people off right away. Like, okay, we're going to see the black suit. And then you didn't. But I digress. The next panel was Aquaman 2. We are spending a lot of time on this. We'll move fast. Aquaman 2, we didn't get much news on it. Really no news. They just said that it's going to be more grounded in the modern world and more serious. Patrick Wilson will be back as King Orm. It was actually a really fun panel between James Wan and Patrick Wilson, who this was their 5th movie working together on after the Conjuring films and others. So that was fun. We got a short Shazam panel as well where Sinbad, the comedian, was there. It was interesting. I guess they were playing on like the whole like Shazam thing. I don't know, whatever.
He wasn't even in Kazam, was he?
I don't know. I was so lost. By that point too, I was kind of exhausted, which is like the funniest thing in the world, that sitting around watching stuff for that long can be exhausting. But when it was all over, I'm like, I'm going to bed. But Sinbad may or may not be in the sequel. We don't know.
He would fit very well in a Shazam movie. He would fit very well.
We did get the title. It's Shazam: Fury of the Gods. So fun name. We'll see what happens. Then we got the Batman trailer. I mean, we got the Batman trailer, but the Batman panel. The trailer had leaked out earlier, I think an hour or 2 earlier, and people were losing their goddamn minds about it. And I was like, I'm not watching it. I'm waiting. It's a really good trailer.
This one, this is the best I've seen out of this DC. What was it called? The DC Comic Con or whatever.
The DC Comic Cone.
Yeah. What was it called?
Fandom.
Yeah, I knew it had dome in it, or ohm or whatever. So I don't know. I lost my notes for a second, and so I panicked. I gotta say, this is just this, and some people have said the thing, "Whoa, a gritty Batman? What will we ever do?" And I get it. I get it. It's been done already. I think that this is something that's been done in a different atmosphere. It's they're bringing in a lot of villains, which over villains is a problem. But I think that they're handling the balance very well because they're working on source material. They're not just going for fanfare. I love that the idea of we're going to have the Riddler as a center of Batman. And, yes, I know Jim Carrey's around, but he was not the center because there were 16 villains in that. This is the first, he's going to be the main guy. And I think that puts in a detective story to it. I think that puts in something new. I thought they were being very cheeky with the, 2021 with the question marks, thinking like quarantine, who the hell knows? But actually that was just Riddler stuff. But I think that this really is going to be, this is Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves made 3 Planet of the Apes movies, which it was a franchise considered legally dead by Tim Burton, and he's bringing back a Batman. And this is the several iterations of Batman. I've seen too many in my life, and I'm still ready for this one.
And when he was talking about the Batman prior to them showing the trailer, number one, he was talking like a mile a minute, like he didn't have enough time to get everything out. He has such an understanding of the character. And of all the characters, really, it is just so exciting to see. And it gets you pumped up for where this is all going. And the fact that they've only completed 25% of filming and we got a 2-minute trailer that was just absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait. I'm really excited. And how about Colin Farrell? Did you see him in that?
So here's what I did. My buddy texted me saying, Colin Farrell's in this. I'm like, no, he's not. I'm like, yeah, he's the guy that says, hey, that's crazy. Or that guy's crazy. And so I stopped and fast forward and rewound and fast forward. I kept on looking at it. Still no idea it was him. Yep. Still couldn't really place him. Yep. But I just couldn't believe what he's doing. I mean, I thought he was just a brilliant casting for Cobblepot anyway. I think that's it's not the obvious Danny DeVito, but it's just something where it's he's a real person, but he's going to be a little bit off.
Yeah, I'm into it. I'm very excited for that. We get that next year. Hopefully they're about to resume production. So yeah, hey, a lot of good stuff coming from DC. I think the nice thing is, while I'm not excited about all of it, or I guess that's the wrong way to say it. While I'm, all of it wouldn't be my first choice of what I want to see right now, because I do want to see more Superman stuff as a Superman fan. More content is fun content, so I'm excited to see what they have coming. But here's where we get into some interesting news. As mentioned earlier, we have a ton of reboots coming down the road, and I'm just going to name them all on this list right now. And this is not all encompassing, because I'm sure 2 more were announced while we've been talking for the past half hour. But we're getting another Nutty Professor, The Thing, Urban Legend, The Exorcist, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The interesting piece with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that I'd love this part of the story. It's being done at Lionsgate. They've been in production for a week, and they saw the initial footage, whatever was completed, said, we don't like this. We're scrapping it. We're replacing the directors. So that should be interesting.
That story fascinated me. Of all of them, that's the one that just said, all right, so this news is getting out. They obviously didn't want this news to get out, but they have to get it out if they're replacing a director. And, how in the world can a movie be successful after this? How in the world could a reboot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre be successful anyway, considering that's already happened and they've already done it? I was in high school when that happened. That wasn't too long ago. It wasn't too long ago. But I think about this and I say, already, what could have been wrong? At that point, you're shooting people getting out of the house and going to a car. What was the issue there? Were they against the vision of the extras in the background? I'm truly baffled by how something could lose it after 1 week. And I'm not really in the biz, but that part of me just really surprises me that something like that could happen so quickly. And it just shows that movie, which already I would never think is going to be that good, is just in severe danger.
Yeah. But you know what? This might be kind of the marketing push it needed in a way to get a few more eyes on it. Because now people are going to be interested to see what was so off about the original footage. What direction did they want to take it in that the filmmakers were not, fulfilling. So Should be interesting. My question with these reboots, are you interested in any of them? I gotta say I'm not.
I mean, well, as has been like our fun little bit on this podcast is me not have seen horror films. So The Thing, Urban Legend, and The Exorcist I've never seen. I'm looking to see The Exorcist soon because I know it's a classic one. But those are just the horror movies. I never really grew up with horror, so those I haven't seen. So those I'm severely not uninterested in. The one that I won't. Interest is a very, very hard word, but The Nutty Professor was already a remake. Eddie Murphy already remade that, and the original is Jerry Lewis, and the original is golden. I love that movie. But Eddie Murphy did something different, did something cool.
Sherman. Sherman.
Exactly. This began the Eddie Murphy age of I'm just gonna talk to myself. And that's what he was doing for a while since then. And he brought something new to the table there. What will this Nutty Professor do that's bringing new to the table? Because, Jerry Lewis just did a classic Jekyll and Hyde with a twist. And then, Eddie Murphy did the talking to themselves and I'm going to be fat and now skinny, which was a fun little, twist to that. What will be the new thing that they can do if they're going to do a new thing? Because they might not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what they would want to... what direction they would want to go. I feel like doing a story about like fat shame and stuff again today is not probably going to be great. Like similar to how like Shallow Hal would never succeed today.
Shallow Hal is surprisingly woke though. Like in my opinion.
Oh, it is in the end.
In the end, you're right.
But like that's I don't think that there's stories that that are worth rehashing. So I do hope that they go a new direction with it. It's going to be interesting to see who they cast in that too. It's more of a recent acquisition of the rights, I believe. So I'm sure. But again, everyone's moving quickly during this pandemic time to kind of get stuff teed up and ready to go for production when they're allowed to again.
We're going to have like a 2023 that's going to have 7,000 movies. Like there'll be like 20 every single week, which
we already have a 2021 that is. I mean, Jesus. Think about everything that was pushed.
Yeah, optimism there. I mean, I'm worried about this thing ever working. That's my pessimism again. But no, we're going to be good. We're going to be fine by then. But looking at the rest of these, those are the only ones because the other ones, the thing just sort of crossed my mind. Is John Carpenter going to be the director? Because that seems like a big old fashioned. What's the point? I mean,
for the thing,
yeah.
I'm not sure. He's involved in it in some way, but they haven't really said anything. I think there's still just not enough known about what's going on. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. All right. So the next interesting story that we have is about Adam Pally. Did you ever watch the show Happy Endings?
I love Happy Endings and I love Adam Pally. He's so funny.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see him in this role as John Belushi, which is just going to be fascinating. I mean, the whole story with John Belushi is he was such a huge star, Saturday Night Live at the height of his career, and then really faced an untimely death. And it was, wasn't it like a woman injected him with drugs or something?
I can't remember
the full story. Yeah, so he from Wikipedia. He struggled with heavy drug use that threatened his comedy career. He was dismissed and rehired at SNL on several occasions due to behavior. And then in 1982, he died from combined drug intoxication caused by Kathy Smith, who injected him with a mixture of heroin and cocaine known as a speedball.
Oh, geez.
And then, wow. So again, one of those actors that was just, at the top of the comedy game during his time. And this is going to explore that. So I love films like this. I mean, it's kind of weird to say that I love like films that explore the tragedy in life, but I think there's something good that can come out of it. And I think Adam Pally is probably going to do a good job with it, knowing his limited acting career.
Yeah. Adam Pally is like very funny. He's great casting for this because he's got kind of this in shape chubby thing going on where, just like John Belushi did. And I really love the idea of it.
Don't we all?
It's yeah, exactly. And I worry about him being able to do drama. Drama might be the one thing with him, especially if this is going to have tragedy. how well is that going to go for him? I don't think I've ever seen him in a drama. I've seen him do, dramatic parts of happy endings, but that was also him being a goofy character. So that could be interesting. Will he need to stretch it that far? Will this film give him a little bit of a leash, or give him a little bit of give where he doesn't have to worry about that? That's going to be one of the tough parts to really know.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick through his IMDb real quick as we're chatting. It seems like he just does a lot of comedy. I mean, he was in that Netflix wrestling movie, The Main Event, that came out earlier this year. He was in Sonic the Hedgehog. I forgot about that until I saw that the other day. But everything else is pretty, like The Mindy Project, Happy Endings.
Oh yeah.
Not really seeing anything else that jumps out. He was a scout trooper in 2 episodes of The Mandalorian.
Of course he was. I think everyone was in that as a voice. I mean, come on. So the other thing that was interesting when I was doing some research on this is that he is not the first person to play John Belushi. Have you heard about this whole situation?
No.
Way back when, Michael Chiklis, when he was starting out, played John Belushi in a movie where John Belushi wakes up in the morgue after he's dead, and he's he's rehashing his life. This was one where anyone who was a friend of John Belushi or family of John Belushi hated this movie. And apparently it was actually genuinely bad.
You don't say.
Chiklis does claim that it caused him to be blacklisted for a while. From how they kind of said, you're not going to work in these studios again and stuff. And, I think now he's, hustled out a bit of a career, but that was one thing that I heard about that. And that's what my mind went to immediately when I saw Adam Pally. I was like, oh no, is he going to get blacklisted? But it seems like this one's a little bit more tasteful. It's not going to be.
Well, and it has a solid director behind it too, with David Frankel. So here's hoping.
Yeah.
The next story, did you see Tomb Raider in 1998 in 2018 with Alicia Vikander?
I did not.
It's actually a pretty solid movie.
I heard it was okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. I think, coming off of a property that has been played out in the video games for decades, and with 2 films that starred Angelina Jolie back in the day, it was a pretty solid movie. So now we're finding out that the director of Tomb Raider, whose name is Roar Uthog, I love the name Roar, he is going to helm a film called Troll for Netflix, which comes from an original idea he has that is kind of based on or inspired by a Scandinavian legend. But if I was a huge troll in the mountains of Norway, awakening after 1,000 years and going on a rampage, totally into it. Think it could be fun.
This plot sounds amazing. This story, when I saw it, did not introduce, first of all, I thought the director of Tomb Raider was doing the next Trolls movie. And so I said, all right, well, no, absolutely not. I mean, I know there's going to be a third one because that made $10 billion, but I really, didn't want that. But this sounds great, where it's just going to be this troll, invading a modernized city and stuff. It just shows that Netflix actually has an unlimited amount of money, and they're like, yeah, sure, do this. Go ahead, have some fun.
Trolls 3, rated R.
Oh, God.
It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but for trolls, and the trolls start terrorizing towns. Crossover. Shudder is their ears are perking up right now.
Oh yeah, Shudder knows it right now. They've started filming.
So the last 2 before we get to the top story that we want to talk about is actually back to comic book world, but this time with Marvel and the Spump, if you will, the Spump.
That's not a real thing, right? Or is that just you, or is that a real thing?
It's literally called the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters.
Oh my God.
Spump. Anyway, we've seen this play out already with Sony with 2 different characters. Obviously, Spider-Man, who has dabbled in both the Sony world and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then we had Venom, which made a lot of money and was actually a fun movie with Tom Hardy. Venom 2 is on its way out. Long been rumored that we were getting a Kraven the Hunter film. What Sony has had eyes on doing for a long time is setting up the Sinister Six, which is Spider-Man's big bads. So Kraven the Hunter has finally found its director in J.C. Chandon, who did Triple Frontier, which I think you and I had talked about. Wasn't that the one with Ben Affleck on Netflix?
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah. So that's going to be another entry in Spunk or whatever it's called. But in addition to that, we did find out that Olivia Wilde has been tapped to direct a female-led Marvel film at Sony. A lot of people right away started theorizing that it was going to be a Spider-Woman movie. She did tweet out a spider when she retweeted the story. So that seemingly confirms it. I'm pumped for that, though, because I think Olivia Wilde directing Booksmart was incredible. So I'm very excited to see what she does with kind of a high-profile film like this and a character like this that has some established roots in the comics.
Booksmart was exceptional, and I'm really excited to see what she does next. I worry that there's that pattern of someone making an amazing indie movie and then immediately getting pushed into the waters of Marvel, or in this case, Spunk, or DC. Spunk. And I think that, I think she can handle it. I think she has the chops. I think she kind of I'll just put it in the most eloquent way. She directed the shit out of Booksmart. I mean, really and so I think she can handle something of this nature where, you're going to be handling a quote unquote Spider-Woman movie. And that is something that, you got to really handle delicately. And you have to bring in a lot of, straight white males that are going to be furious at just the thought of this. And so I think that there's something there where you have to you have to make that accessible, which I think she can do, because actually Booksmart was a little bit of a flop in terms of how many people saw it. But I think that you could draw it in after, from the beginning of the movie. And I think this could be something that really works. I just do worry about that indie director going right into something this big, which is a pattern that has worked and not worked.
I mean, we saw with superhero movies with Fantastic Four a couple years ago, 5 years ago, that did not work. Josh Trank was not able to go from low budget to huge budget. Poor Josh Trank. He's going to be.
He made it back with Capone, though. He's good with the.
Goodbye to you. Goodbye.
Now,
to you.
One of the things I think about is the directors of Captain Marvel, which I think is a fine film. I think it kind of loses its way with all of its effects and the world building, and I think it gets a little bit muddy towards around the third act, and I worry about something like that happening with Spider-Man or Spider-Woman, where just bringing in a bunch of hands and just ripping it apart. That's going to be what
was that sir?
That was the worst attempt at, I'm scared I'm going to hit the microphone, so
people that are listening through the podcast are not going to be able to see, but you're doing this weird the claw thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's true. Yeah, I forgot that this is not a visual medium. Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, the thing with this that's going to be really interesting is they're establishing a universe. So any of the directors that are brought in are going to have the same task that Marvel directors had as well. But Sony does have a history of being very hands-on, and that worries me a little bit. So we'll see where that goes. They need to rename their universe because Spunk is not where I want them to go. Yeah, yeah.
I one issue about Kraven the Hunter, which is cool. They're doing this 6 villains thing. They're going to fight Spider-Man, but they're all going to get together in the one movie, and then Spider-Man's going to be over at Marvel. Are they going to do it's just going to be them being oh no,
yeah, I mean, they really have to set this all up quick, right? I mean, they're already starting with, of course, the Kraven movie is in the works. I'm just trying to bring up who was the original Sinister Six, because there were
Jared Leto as
Morbius,
which
that's another movie I forgot is still lingering out there. But the original Sinister Six was Kraven the Hunter, Doc Ock, Electro, Sandman, and Vulture. We have Vulture in there with Michael Keaton's Vulture. We have Electro, who's not listed there, but Electro comes into it down the road as well. So I'm pumped about that because not Electro. I'm sorry. Mysterio is who I meant. I love Mysterio. I love Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio. But I don't know. I mean, I think they have 3 movies with Tom Holland right now left. in the current agreement, so I don't know what happens with the rights and what that's going to look like if Kevin Feige.
And Mysterio belongs to Marvel as well. I mean,
unless that was part of the agreement,
yeah.
Kevin Feige's going to produce that movie, or Feige, whatever. I don't know. All right, enough superhero talk. Let's talk magic, because that's a good transition, right? So the top story this week is that we are seeing production set to return amid some extra precautions that are being taken. We know that Jurassic World 3 Dominion is back in production. Batman is heading back into production if it hasn't started already. And now we found out that production is set to begin on Fantastic Beasts 3, which was originally supposed to start a while ago, actually, but they kept rewriting the script after The Crimes of Grindelwald was less than stellar. And I think they were supposed to start filming earlier this year, probably March. It seems like everyone was supposed to start in March, and then COVID was like, hey, what's up? So they will be filming in the UK. Little's known about this franchise, but they will also be venturing to Brazil, which kind of sticks with or keeps with the theme of Fantastic Beasts kind of taking us all throughout the world. So it's supposed to be in theaters on my birthday next year, 2021, November 12th. What are your thoughts?
So I watched all the Harry Potters. I didn't read the books because I can't read, but I saw all the Harry Potters. I thought they're great. I loved them. I loved how they kept it fairly consistent in the style. Veered off a little bit. They got away from the Chris Columbus after the kids movie ones were done, and then they started these movies, and I have not seen them because I don't care. And that really is the genuine problem. It's just, it's like, oh, these are in the Harry Potter universe, and oh, we have hot, sexy Dumbledore, and like that kind of piqued my interest for a second. But really, it was just one of these things where it's like, oh, I don't really care about these characters that I don't know, and so honestly, I never saw them. Now they made a buttload, so that's I'm in the minority there. But I think that this was based off of a pamphlet that J.K. Rowling had.
It was it was a book that was written for charity. It's one of their textbooks in the books and the movies. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is actually the name of the textbook. But she wrote a textbook that was sold for charity with, I think, the history of Quidditch or something back in the day. So it's a completely original story in terms of the characters. I mean, Newt Scamander, who is the main character, is mentioned. He's the author of that book. So ultimately it will build up to that. I think what they have going for them and what they need to figure out how to play better is it's set to be a series of 5 movies leading up to this big battle that everyone that if you're a big Harry Potter fan, but it's referenced between Grindelwald and Dumbledore. So there's a lot of things that they're playing with there, a lot of callbacks to things that were revealed in the original 7 books. But my biggest fear is that because the first 2 didn't do so well and they didn't have total crazy callbacks, or I guess references, that now they're just going to overload it. I had read somewhere a while ago that they were trying to figure out a way to get Harry Potter in it somehow. And I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of just the fantasy genres, they do this thing. This was what we were going to talk about, were different fantasy genres. And the way I looked at them is what they do is they usually they're based off of something. Maybe sometimes they're original, but usually they're based off of something. And once they fill out that source material, they say, let's go further. And when we go further, let's go into a fake textbook that was written, and then bring in a bunch of other stories that come from that. And that's where it gets a little bit slippery. I think of Lord of the Rings, those first 3, amazing. The Hobbit movies, first of all, 1 book, 1 movie. But what Peter Jackson tried to do is get a lot of stuff from, I believe it's called the Silmarillion. I'm a little bit out of my depth here. But, he tried to put in way more than he needed to, and they kind of turned into a mess. So then, and then like, the other one I had here, well, actually this one's a little bit different, but the Narnia series just kind of, ran out of gas, because that's one that like, could have been cool. I think, I don't think it made a lot of money. I think some studios got bankrupted, and, they tried to, I remember they had the first two going. And then the third one was kind of made by a different studio, and that turned into a bit of a mess. And then, there was like 4 or 5, and since then they have not made them.
Yeah, I think they landed somewhere else again, and they're going to be remade or something like that. So that is a property that people are pretty passionate about. So I don't know if it will find its way to one of the streamers or what in the future. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's the biggest problem is that they have success and you get greedy and you want to expand the universes. I will say that the first Fantastic Beasts is actually really good in my eyes. It was surprisingly fun. And something different. The second one had the potential, but it just was very, very convoluted and really just did not really, I think, deliver the way it should have. It was kind of confusing, and if you're trying to market towards kids, then you're going to have issues with that. The other thing it has going for it, or does not have going for it in a weird way, is there's the whole Johnny Depp saga with Amber Heard. So Johnny Depp being cast as Grindelwald, who is such a big character in the history of the wizarding world, has been met with some angst from the beginning. They haven't recast him, so who knows what's going to happen there. You also have Ezra Miller, who is in these movies, who I really like his character, but Ezra Miller, and we didn't talk about this with the Flash panel, but he's just a kooky guy. He obviously has gotten into some trouble with, there's a video of him choke slamming someone, like a fan. So that's a problem. DC seems to just be running with it. I don't really care for him as a person from what I know about him. Don't know him personally, but just rubs me the wrong way. So I don't know. I don't know where they're going to go.
You have this at the center of all this too, which is going to be one of the really main things right now, is J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, great point there.
He has said some pretty damn hateful things right now about trans people, I believe. And I look at this and I just say, is this? And I thought about that when they said, "Oh, they're making the third one," because like between the Johnny Depp situation, which to tell you the truth, I think that is more complicated than I originally imagined. Yeah. Which is, I don't know enough to know, but like, there may have been some things where he has other issues as well. Like, so I'm not even touching this one. But I look at it and it's like there's so many friggin' problematic issues here that I don't even know what to think about. And once again, I haven't seen the first two. I really liked the Harry Potter movies. I was a fan of them. I kind of just don't care about what these do or where they go. And, so for me, put Johnny Depp in there. Who else can we get in there? Get Louis C.K. in there, Kevin Spacey.
Now you're being hateful.
Fatty Arbuckle.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I use that a lot when I'm at a loss for words. I say interesting a lot. But it really is, because number one, they're rewriting a lot of these, a lot of the scripts, because obviously like they know where they want to go with them. And I think she has a pretty good outline of where she wants to go, but they need to spice them up and make them more appealing and more exciting. Otherwise, they're going to be losing money on them. But it would be really surprising to me if they don't finish out the story, just given, the amount of money that J.K. Rowling has made Warner Brothers. But it does reek of them trying to do like a time travel thing or something with like Harry Potter or something. I don't know. So I don't know. I see some comments here. Sam, actually, I know Sean doesn't read, but I believe an author's story affects their work. Is HP safe from this new legacy she's creating, the whole brand? I struggle with that, because what's interesting is one of the things with the Harry Potter books that is revealed in the end is that Dumbledore, who is like one of the most popular and beloved characters of the Harry Potter series, is actually a gay man. And his first love was Grindelwald, who is this like terribly troubled, crazy villain that we are seeing in the films right now. So it's a complicated relationship, but obviously it gets into a gay storyline, which is for me great, and I love that. But trans storylines are very different, and what we're seeing is that and very different in the fact that like we can't say that just because you touch on a gay storyline you're doing service for the entire community. She said some really shitty things and has doubled down on them, which is the part that's really getting me.
Has not apologized and has just confirmed them again and again. Like,
exactly.
I know you thought I meant this, but I did. Like,
yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think that Harry Potter has such a special place in people's hearts that it's going to be fine long term. I do think what you might see down the road is like Warner Brothers trying to buy her out of the ideas and stuff. Like, give us your characters, here's some money, be gone. Because it's become just a huge worldwide phenomenon. If you look at the theme parks, the movies, the books, everything. So I don't see it going. I think that's the same with really like Lord of the Rings or any of the other fantasy. You think of Game of Thrones. We're not, we haven't gotten a Game of Thrones movie yet, but I promise you it's probably down the road.
Oh God, yeah.
2 spinoffs were planned for HBO. I think they're only moving forward with 1 now, but that's what happens. You try to dive deeper into some of the storylines, or at least, create stories where the author hadn't gone before. So I don't know. I really don't know. Will I see these movies? Yes. So my question of like, what's my favorite fantasy series? It's Harry Potter. I get lost in Harry Potter and I love it so much. What's the worst to me? I don't know that I have an answer for that because I just love fantasy in general.
Well, fantasy is such an interesting genre because, like, when I think about like fantasy, I think about well, I'll tell you the truth. This is what happened: is you talked about this on the notes, and then I googled fantasy movies because I kind of couldn't like think of them, and everything was encompassed in them. The Avengers movies were there. The different, like King Kong was there. Fantasy is such a large portion of everything that it's really difficult to really pin it down. So Star Wars was in fantasy, which really fascinated me because I would not call that fantasy, but it technically is there. That's sci-fi. That's just sci-fi. That's not fantasy. But it was there. All the comic book movies were in fantasy. Like, it really was just something that's interesting. So if I'm really going to think about it, I think it's got to be Lord of the Rings. I think those 3 movies just absolutely blew me away. The Amazon series hopefully will be just as amazing.
I was just going to say that's a great example of they're expanding, the franchise again now with a really interesting Amazon franchise or series, I should say, that I'm excited for. But it's again an example of dipping back down into it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hopefully they have something good that they're going to mine, but it'll be tough.
I don't know why with fantasy movie franchises, I guess I always think of book-based films, like book to movies, book to film, novel to film, if you will. So I don't know.
There we go.
Will I see them? I will.
You're
see
doing
them,
great.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just extremely exhausted right now. I'm probably going to watch Harry Potter now, actually, because I'm kind of excited for it. All 7 tonight. Well, I don't know if they're still on HBO Max, but when HBO Max launched, they're like, we have all 7 or all 8 Harry Potters. And then 3 weeks later or 2 weeks later, they're like, watch them now because they're going soon.
J.K. Rowling wrote a paper and that's it. It's like, oh,
my God. But that's interesting that with that J.K. Rowling situation, I don't think it will taint the series much because I think that the goodwill is there for it. But well, hey, that was a lot of fun news, fun stuff. We really nailed that 45-minute time limit we said we were going to aim for.
Hey, before we were at 135, so we are definitely doing better.
True. This week's new releases, the New Mutants is hitting theaters. I am going to see it in IMAX on Thursday. That is my first return to the theaters. Lord,
I wish you luck, and I'm extremely jealous of you.
The Personal History of David Copperfield comes out next week. This week, actually, limited release, I believe. But I noticed in the theater near me, it's going to be out next week, so I may venture there too. Bill and Ted Face the Music is now coming out on Friday. I wrote 3 days because I think I read an article earlier that said just 3 days or a tweet or something. Oh God, I'm special.
Got this.
So that's coming out in theaters, but also on video on demand. I will not be seeing that. I just have no interest.
I'm checking that out because I just watched both the two original. And
Did you really?
Mainly because it's the only one that's going to be on friggin' VOD because it's the only crap I can see this weekend.
You get Phineas and Ferb the movie, Candace Against the Universe on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it's way better than a theater. Thanks, bud. That's
no problem. No problem. Yeah, complain to me. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But Phineas and Ferb, I used to like. One of my nieces or nephews watched that series, and I started watching it for fun, like on the side. It actually is one of those like intelligent kid shows that has some funny like adult humor in it.
It's got that SpongeBob quality.
Yeah, not quite SpongeBob level, but it's there. So tell me about the binge, though. You added that to the list, and I don't know anything about it.
Oh, yes. So this movie is coming out on Hulu on the 28th. So yeah, in 3 days. And I this is a movie starring I believe it's Vince Vaughn and there are a few other kid actors I can't quite remember, so I'll just move past that. It is a movie about alcohol for kids. Alcohol is legal for like 24 hours. It's basically The Purge, but for legal drinking. And just that plot line alone was like, okay, yeah, I'm watching this immediately. This sounds great.
Oh my God, this sounds so stupid, but I'm going to watch it. Skylar Gisondo, Eduardo Franco, Dexter Darden.
Skylar Gisondo has been in he was in the Santa Clarita Diet and the Righteous Gemstones recently.
Oh yes, he was. He has a very recognizable face.
Well, his face is the funniest goddamn thing I've ever seen, and with all due respect to him, like he just knows how to like deliver funny from that face.
Dexter Darden was in the Maze Runner series, I believe.
There we go.
And then Grace Van Dien. Why do I know that name? Looking at her list right now, nothing that pops out. Well, I mean, at least we're getting new movies.
We are.
If you're not going to theaters, you don't have much to watch. But
shut up, Joe.
Sean, where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Math Teacher Movies. I review way too many movies, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, until Thursday when
Thursday when I go back
in the classroom. Well, guys, just before we wrap up, I do want to remind everyone to go register for the first ever Guy at the Movies Virtual Film Festival, which takes place this Friday through Sunday. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll be there. It'll be a blast. You can listen to this podcast anywhere you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere that you can find them, anchor.com. I don't know where else. But also wear your damn mask, and we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.